a little about me. I've been with Sucuri for about 4 years here. Chat support and the customer experience has always been sort of central to what I've been focused on. I live in Victoria, BC, up in Canada. We have a few people in this area. Our team is remotely distributed, so we're all over the world. I love my kitty cat who's sleeping somewhere in the corner here, and just getting out in nature here, this beautiful area. So we have a lot to cover in this webinar. We're going to essentially go through setup for all of the Sucuri services, including backups, which are an addition to any Sucuri plan. We'll also go over some tips and tricks. There's a lot that we've learned in several years of providing service that people often ask, so we'll go through some of those as well. So with that, actually, I'm just going to hop out of the presentation so we can show you what we're doing. This is the page that you'll likely see when you sign up for a Sucuri account. This is our monitoring overview. We're going to start by adding our site, which we actually have to do before we open a malware removal request. A lot of people are really eager to get that done. So we'll add our site. You can also tab down to add additional sites all at once, but this is just the one we're adding today. So a quick add site. Oh, it's signed me out here. There we go. We'll click add the site. And at this point, it's going to ask us if we'd like to open a malware removal request. If your site isn't hacked or you want to set everything up first, you can choose not yet. But at this point, I'm going to click yes so we can go through this form. It already shows my site name here because I've added it. But if you have multiple sites, you can click down and select one of them from the list here. On this option, you can select the issues that you're having. These give our team sort of an insight into what you're seeing, but if any of these don't apply to you or you're not sure which to select, go ahead and choose other. You can enter some additional information after we submit this form. So these are the types of connections that we can use to clean up your site. We use FTP, SFTP, SSH is also an option. We can use your cPanel account login and password or control panel equivalent, or this other field relates to the hosting account. This is pretty much all of the information that we can use to clean up the site. So I do urge people, if you aren't sure of any of these details or you have some login information, you're not sure what you're sending us, it really helps to take a moment and just speak with your host or your website administrator and confirm that you have working credentials for one of these options. We handle tickets in order of receipt, so if you submit a ticket and the login information isn't correct, it's going to be a little bit of a wait before someone can check that and get back to you. So confirming credentials is going to save everyone a bit of time here. I'm going to enter my SFTP host, which is just my site name. There we go. I happen to know that my port is 22 because I'm using SFTP. If you use FTP, your port will be 21. If you're submitting any of the other login details that we've covered here, don't worry about the port because it's really not going to apply. We'll enter our SFTP username and our password. Now, I happen to know that my SFTP credentials work because I've tested them via my FTP client here. But I also happen to know that this form isn't going to accept them without giving me an error here. And the reason for that is when you enter information into this form, it attempts to connect via the method you've provided. It also attempts to drop some files in the root directory for whatever this credential type is, and it attempts to execute those files to begin our cleanup process. So if it can't do any one of those things, it's going to give us this error message that you'll see in a moment here. There we go. So it's not able to do one of those things. Likely it's unable to execute the scripts, but I'm not sure exactly. If you see this error message, don't panic. It's just meaning that one of those steps has failed. Test the credentials either via an FTP client or test logging into your control panel or hosting account with the information you've put into the form and click submit request anyway. That's going to put the ticket into our system. And at this point, we'll have the option to enter some additional details. Don't mind this password, that's complete nonsense. But you can type in something here like, you know, my site is blacklisted by this organization, or anything that you might think is relevant to the cleanup process. We're very thorough on each case, but sometimes you have a little insight into what's happening that we don't have. So that can always be helpful in helping us to complete things quickly and efficiently for you. So at this point, we're going to wait for a reply on that. Actually, I'll just show you. In this panel, under support, in the upper right-hand corner is where we can find all of our tickets. When you submit a ticket and we respond to it, you will receive our response via email, but you will also have to log into the Sucuri account to enter updates. So you can post those here. That's a security protocol. We just want to be sure that people aren't, sending access requests via email or something like that. So logging into your account is the way to respond to tickets. And at this point, we're going to set up server-side scanning. Now it's showing me here that my scanner is deactivated. For new accounts, you would see that it's not activated. There's little difference, but I'm going to click Enable Scanner. And the process for enabling the scans is very much like the process for submitting that form. It's going to attempt to connect, attempt to find the right directory, and attempt to execute a little PHP file that's associated with these scans. If it can't do any one of those things, you'll see an error message. We'll also go through how to enable manually, which can be quite helpful if you're comfortable with it. So I'm going to enter my directory, and I would click Enable Server-Side Scanner to get that started. But I won't click that right now, just so I can show you these manual steps. If you get an error when enabling automatically via the other method here, or you want to do it this way, I guess, you can click Download the file and connect to an FTP client. And this newly downloaded file will be placed in your site's root directory. I can confirm here, let's see if this will work. There we go, that the file is there. It's able to be found. And then I'll just click Verify and Enable. And that's going to confirm that the file is in place, run it, and then we have our server-side scanner set up. So we're going to move over to backups at this point. Again, this is very similar to what we've done with both the form and the server-side scanner. Backups are an additional cost. They're something that we can offer to sort of increase your security stance. It's allowing you to account for the worst case scenario. If your site disappears or the worst happens, backups are a good option. You don't have to use them, but they're available to you if you want to. I'll enter my username and my password and click Next. At this point, it's going to ask us about our database connection. For most users, this auto detect option will be just fine. It's going to find the database there and connect to it, so your database will also be backed up. But there are some other options here. And at this point, I'll bring your attention to the KB. This contains troubleshooting articles and overviews for essentially everything we've put into the Sucuri dashboard. So how to set up backups. You can see here under database backups, it goes through what the cron job options and the custom options are if you want to set things up yourself that way. But we won't get into that right now because it's a little more involved. So I'm going to click Next. It's going to find my database here and ask me how I'd like to handle notifications and backup frequency. Most people choose daily, but you can choose monthly if you'd like. We store backups for 90 days, I believe. 90 days. Maybe 60 days. I'll confirm here, but you can choose the backup frequency and you can choose your notification preferences. I like to be notified only on failure. That minimizes the number of notifications that I receive. And I'll click Save. And at this point, the backup is going to start on my site. Backup speeds can vary depending on your hosting server speed and how large the site is. So give it a bit of time. But once the backup is complete, you'll be able to see your backup options in this panel. Also in the KB, there are the restore options. We won't get into that today because the backup won't complete by the time we're done here. But you have auto restore options. You can restore by specific file. There are several options available to you. So now that we have the backups in place, we're going to move over to the firewall. And this is This is the most complex thing that you'll be setting up within your Sucuri account. I never want to scare anyone or make it seem difficult, but it is the option that has the highest number of variables. So we'll go over some very basic details, but I do want to ensure that you're aware that support is a huge option within your Sucuri account. For any of these items, if you don't know what to do next, or you want for us to do it for you, or you just have some questions before you proceed, you can open up a support ticket, or I'll show you where the chat option is shortly here. Come through and chat with us, and we'll give you some direction about what to do next. So we'll enter our site, and for these options, I recommend not selecting the top one here unless you're absolutely certain that you're under a DDoS attack. You can select any of these options after you set up the firewall as well, so there's no pressure to put them in place right now, but this option will severely limit how people are able to access the site. It helps if you're under an attack because it's going to limit the amount of traffic that you have coming to you illegitimately, but you want to be careful with using that option. This option is something I highly recommend. This would limit access to the WP admin panel, for example, to a list of pre-approved IP addresses. That is an extra step, I know, and some people don't want to enable it because that extra step isn't something they want to do often, but it's really going to help increase your security stance. So we'll go over how to add an IP to the whitelist shortly here, but I do recommend, if at all possible, if you can work with that, enabling this option. The Sucuri DNS servers are something you can integrate into your account if you don't use your DNS settings that often, or you prefer to manage them where they currently are. You don't have to select that. Again, it's something you can enable later, but it's just ease of use. If you want to incorporate those into your account, you can. So I'll click Add Site. And for this webinar, I'm not actually going to set up the firewall completely. A few reasons for that. I don't want to show you my GoDaddy account, but we'll go over the very basic option. And for anything else, you can come through and talk with us or open a ticket and we'll get it done for you. We do want to be very careful with the firewall setup because it has some potential to impact the site's availability. We're handling the DNS records. We want to be absolutely certain that we do everything right so your site is available through the whole process. If you have cPanel, this option is going to be the simplest for you, cPanel or Plesk. You just click on that, enter the login details, and it's going to automatically find the correct record, make the necessary adjustment, and set things up for you. I don't have cPanel, so what I would be doing is updating my DNSA record to point from this IP, which is the hosting IP, to the firewall IP. And before we set the firewall up, traffic goes from the visitor directly to the hosting server. With the firewall in place, traffic is going to go from the visitor to the firewall to the hosting server. So we can act as sort of a bouncer, keeping anything away from your site if it's not supposed to be there. So we're going to assume that I've gone ahead and made that change. Once the DNS propagation is complete, which can take anywhere between an hour to 24 hours, we would see this status change. We won't see that right now because we haven't made the change, but you can always click these little arrows to refresh the status if you're not sure if the change has been made already. Let's see. So now that we've assumedly set up the firewall, I want to move back over to the presentation quickly here so we can show you a firewall block message. If you enabled that WP admin or WordPress limiting setting when you set things up, you may see a Sucuri firewall block message at some point. What this means is that the IP address that is attempting to access the site is either trying to do something that is determined to be malware through the algorithms very complex algorithms that we have in place to allow the firewall to determine what is legitimate access and what isn't, or the IP address has just changed for a user and you need to be whitelisted. So let's go through quickly how to whitelist an IP. We have a couple options. Once the firewall is activated, you'll see a whitelist IP option right here. It's going to be quite available. You just click on the website firewall tab and that will show up for you. You can copy the IP from the block message and post it in there. You can also access that under Access Control. And here we have the option to not only whitelist the IPs, but to choose a time frame. So for instance, if you have a developer or consultant, you want them to have access for a day, but maybe not forever, you can post the IP in there and click whitelist. I also love to draw people's attention to the notes field here, because if you whitelist an IP, we at Sucuri have no visibility about what that IP is for you or why you've whitelisted it. So adding a note when you whitelist an IP, if you want to remember down the line why that IP has been whitelisted, is really helpful. So we also have the option, and few people wander over to this API page, but the quickest and easiest way to whitelist an IP is to use this link. This whitelist IP button can be clicked on, right click, and you can copy the link address, and that's going to allow you to paste it into a browser window to whitelist your current IP. You just paste it, load it like this. It's going to say my IP is already whitelisted, but you can also copy or share that link. So if I want to share it with my developer or someone else who needs access, who might have a changing IP, because that does occur, you can copy and share the link or just bookmark it for your own use. So now that everything's set up, we've gone through how to gain access through the firewall if you have some extra security in place. I wanted to show you a few of the notifications that you might receive. When the server-side scanner is set up, it's going to be scanning all site files, so everything associated with your site below the root directory that it resides in, that little script resides in. It will alert you if you have outdated site elements, which is really helpful. It will also tell you if you have malware. If you receive an alert about outdated site elements and you have the firewall in place, know that we're virtually patching those for you. So we do recommend that you upgrade site elements whenever possible, but if for some reason you can't, or maybe you can't do it right away, it's not a security concern if the firewall is in place. If you receive a notification about malware on the site, you're going to want to open up a new malware removal request. We require actually that you open up a new malware removal request for every instance of malware on your site. There are a few reasons for that. A lot of people, get a little not frustrated, but want to know why we don't just save login details. We want to minimize the risk for you by removing login details from the tickets after a certain period of time. We don't want to keep those on file because that makes us a security concern. If we had just databases of login information, us being a security company, we are a target for that kind of thing, so we don't keep that information on file. We also recommend that you change login information after every exploit. So that's going to just cover the potential that maybe your password was stolen. Maybe it was really easy to guess and someone used a script to obtain that. We recommend that you update login details for everything after your site has been hacked and cleaned. We also want to have some visibility of the big picture. If your site is hacked once, that's devastating, that's terrible, and we don't want for that to occur again. But if your site is hacked multiple times, opening multiple requests gives us kind of a little flag that something is going on, maybe in the larger scheme of things that isn't being addressed. Ideally, with the firewall set up, your site should not be accessible again. So if one of those few ways in which your site can be compromised with the firewall up is causing you to have security risks again and again, we want to provide some extra insight there. So now that we have gone over that option, I should note here as well, you may receive alerts for any of these options. If it'll load for me. There we go. Under settings, you can see which scan types are in place. Malware and blacklist will alert us if there's malware or if a company has blacklisted us. You may also receive notifications about DNS changes, SSL changes if you have that enabled here, or uptime. Those will reach you via email as well. And again here, I don't need to show you this, but we'll draw your attention to the KB section. You can search the knowledge base. That's going to bring up any results. We have searched these things recently. It also, if you're just curious about what a setting is in your Sucuri account, or how something might interact with another thing, these articles are probably going to have you covered. If you don't find something in the KB, or you'd rather just chat with us, we offer live chat support. It'll be available in just a second. There we go. In the lower right corner of your Sucuri account. Chat is available from Monday to Friday, 6 a.m. till 10 p.m. PST. If our chat service is offline, if this shows that we're not available, we will respond to your questions via email, but there may be a bit of a wait. So the support ticket system is going to be your best bet for getting assistance. We work on tickets 24/7, 365 days a year. You name the holiday, Christmas Day, New Year's Day, Thanksgiving, we'll be there to assist. We do also ask that you open tickets for any changes on the site. The reason for that is we don't own the chat service. So we don't manage security there. Opening a ticket allows us to ensure, because we manage security for this system, that we're dealing with the account holder. It verifies you, and then we can make any adjustments related to anything related to your Sucuri account via a support ticket request. Let's see. There's one other thing that I wanted to cover for you here. Just to ensure that. Chat support, if you use the chat option, it will not open a ticket. Chat here does not interact with the ticket system in any way. I often have people saying, "Oh, I sent you a ticket earlier, and you sent me an email, but I don't see the ticket in my dashboard." This chat option does not open a ticket for you. It will send us an email or open a chat, but it won't initiate a ticket as it would if you open one from under the support header here. So there's one more thing that I wanted to show you, and that is the cache. Because we have that extra hop in here, so visitor firewall hosting account or hosting server, we offer caching. Usually caching will make the site faster than it was before you put the firewall in place, but caching also means that we store content, so some things that you update on the site may not update for you immediately. You can change the caching level here. I recommend keeping the caching level enabled if at all possible, and you can clear the cache on this page by clicking the Clear Cache button. Again, on the API section here, we have a handy little Clear Cache button. So you can, as with the Whitelisting IP API, you can copy this link and bookmark it for yourself or share it to clear the cache anytime you need to. Caching refreshes very frequently, but because we have so many servers, even that constant refresh may not allow you to see changes on your site immediately. So using the Clear Cache option or this little handy link will allow you to clear the cache anytime you need to. So that's all I have for you guys. Val, do we have any questions?
Oh, we have plenty of questions. That was a lot of content, and I'm sure people are really curious. The first question that got in was from Leslie, and let me just read it over here. She's asking, if I select to restrict to admin directories checkbox inside the firewall setting, she means the screen, do I still need to add the admin pages? I assume she means URLs like WP admin or whatever, typo3, Joomla, or would that be enough?
That would
already.
Oh, sorry.
So if she's already checking the box to restrict admin directories, would she need to also add the actual URLs in the blacklist or not?
No. Typically, that would be enough. You can restrict, I won't hop over to show you here, you can restrict by URL. So you can enter as many URLs into that box as you'd like to have it restricted based on IP whitelisting. But I should also note that IP whitelisting essentially overrides everything. So any settings that you select, for the most part, will be overridden by the IP whitelisting. So that kind of answers your question. You should be covered there with just selecting that box, but if you're not, you can then further restrict access and then whitelist IPs as necessary.
Perfect. And she goes on with another question. So Leslie gets to have two questions today. That actually doesn't really happen that often. Is it better to provide the cPanel access so you can check the database too?
No, that's not necessary for the cleanup. I'm guessing she's meaning for the cleanup process.
Yep.
Yeah, with the access, a lot of people are surprised at this actually, but with FTP or SFTP, SSH access, we can actually get to your database. We have some tricky, legitimate ways of doing that, but we don't need cPanel access to fully clear the site and database.
Awesome. Laura is asking, if I add the firewall service, will that interfere in any way with our email, which we have pointed to a third-party service, not our hosting company?
Excellent question. It has that potential. I'm going to hop out quickly here just to show you. We have that covered in our handy KB. Yes, there is a potential for email to be impacted. We have that covered in this KB article. Essentially, you just want to be sure that your email records, that MX record in your DNS management panel, is pointed to the specific place where your email should be delivered. If it's pointing to the site itself, so to the domain name, when you set up the firewall, emails will not be delivered because the firewall doesn't handle email traffic. So you just want to be sure that the email is directed to the place where it should go and not through the domain name before the firewall is set up.
Awesome. Tim is asking, let me just read it through. It's a bit longer question. So from what he says, he doesn't get any data under his audit trails in the dashboard. And if he's asking if you can quickly go and discuss audit trails, maybe, or maybe try to get something from the KB. He couldn't find anything in there.
Yes. So our system does have some quirks. So we try and make it a really simple user interface, but there's a lot going on in the background. If your audit trails aren't displaying and you've just set the firewall up, that's completely normal. For about 24 hours, you won't see a lot of data in the firewall panel after you set things up. But after that, if the audit trails aren't appearing, it may mean that something in our backend isn't delivering the information in the way that it should. If that's the case, open a support ticket. Our team can take a look and fix that up for you.
Like I said, questions are pouring in. Another one here from Laura. If I add the firewall service, will I still be able to see analytics for individual IP addresses coming to our site? She's giving an example here through Google Analytics, for example.
Excellent question. We happen to also have that covered in our, I didn't need to do that, in our KB. Same IP for all users. So in this case as well, since all traffic is going through the firewall, for a lot of services, you may see the firewall IP as an entry for every request. To fix that, you would just want to ensure that for your specific panel, you have these items in place for your panel, for your platform. We can help to do that for you as well. It gets a little complex. I won't go through every option here, but yes, that is a potential, and yes, you can account for it with a little change to how those IPs are being directed to your site.
Excellent. And because it is a kind of a longer process, I just wanted to remind everyone that we will have all these questions that came in answered by Jan, and they will be posted on the webinar page. Also, they will be sent to all the registrants via email, so no worries, you'll get all the questions in detail. Just because of the sake of time, we'd like to move on and get some more questions, so we don't stick with just any one too long. Okay, another question here coming. How are subdomains or multi-sites handled?
We get this question a lot, and when I first started, it was the question that was the most difficult for me to kind of wrap my brain around. Each service handles subdomains differently. Functionally speaking, for the monitoring service, if we put that file in the root directory for server-side scanning and the subdomains are below the main site in the root directory, the file will scan everything. So if your configuration is correct, so that your multi-sites are below the main domain in that file structure, they will be scanned for monitoring. And it's similar with the firewall service. If the DNS records for the main domain directly impact, or if a change to those directly impacts how the traffic for the subdomains are handled, then it's likely the firewall will cover all of them. This is another item that we do like to have a little conversation with you about. People use the word subdomain to point to different things, and it's highly reliant on your configuration. So come through to chat, let us know what you're dealing with, what your questions are, and we can get some answers for you. Oh, one thing I did want to note as well, when you open a chat in your Sucuri account, here we go. If you open that from your Sucuri account and start a chat there with us, then you will be chatting with our support team. If you open a chat from our website here, you'll be directed to our sales team. It's not really necessary for you to differentiate those. We can always transfer chats back and forth between our team members, but just so you're aware, if you're coming to us from, if you come to us from the website, you won't necessarily reach our technical support team. Sorry, bit of a tangent, but...
That's a very good point, because just so we don't get it mixed. Just in time to get another question in, does the CDN option that you mentioned cost extra? And if yes,
no.
How much?
The CDN is include most things. Aside from backups, we don't like extra charges. We want for you to come through and have a seamless experience without being pushed to upgrade. The CDN is included in all of our plans.
Awesome. Okay, that's really just 3 minutes over the scheduled time that we have of half an hour. Thank you so much, Jen, for your time. Awesome questions from everyone participating. Again, let me remind you, people, for all of you sending questions in, we will have all of the answers sent from Jen to you. It will be also published on our site. We will have a recording of this session that will be published on our YouTube channel and on the page. And so you will not be missing anything out, well, except the actual excitement of being live with us, which we do invite you to join us in the next webinars. Again, thank you, Jen. I'll let you to say goodbye to the folks watching, and again, welcome everyone to the next ones. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, email us or come through and chat. You might get to me or one of my lovely coworkers, but we're happy to answer your questions anytime.